The other big story, I consider one of the bigger stories that came out that everybody was kind of talking about this week, is has to do with Ensign Peak and the church's finance. And the headline is, why is the LDS Church dumping billions of stocks? This is a good question because this is extremely uncharacteristic of what they do. We have not really seen this before. And of course, when they do something unique or different, people take notice. And we're going to talk about what different people are saying. So a summary of the article says, a new report from the Salt Lake Tribune reveals that the LDS Church is quietly carrying out one of the largest investment moves in its history. It's selling off billions of dollars in stocks over the past 6 months. According to the federal financial disclosures, the church's investment arm, Ensign Peak Advisors, sold roughly 7.7 billion with a B, billion, worth of stock between late 2025 quarters. About 5.6 billion of that came just in the final quarter of the year alone, making it the biggest sell-off since the church began publicly reporting its holdings in 2020. What did you first think when you heard that, Bill, or saw that headline?
Yeah, I think this is interesting. RFM and I have talked before about the church, the money that it has invested, and that if it would have just had it managed by putting all of it in the S&P 500, it would have actually gotten a better return than it did by having all of these dummy companies and all of these backdoor channels and paying people tons of money to try to make the smartest of decisions and how you invested it. And then you see that fund build up to, 200 and something billion, to the point now where I think in total assets, they've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 320 billion. And now we're in this moment where there's so much chaos and division in how people feel about whether the market's going to go up or it's going to go down. And now we're looking at a moment where the church is wanting to take out some of its winnings, let's say, and set them aside so that if something maybe drastic happens or whatever goes on, and I'm sure you'll tell us more about their reasoning, but at least one potential reason is to protect some of that money from the stock market going down.
Yeah, and that's true. There's a lot of speculation on why did they do this, and I remember back, when my parents were younger, investing, at least in where they were going to church, was seen as gambling, encouraged not to do that, even though the LDS Church did it. And, the LDS Church came out and said, we don't want to let people really know that we invest because then they will follow suit. They will try to copy what we're doing, right? And I did have that thought about this, because we don't know exactly why they did it. We're going to go through some speculation on it, but, are members going to look at this and go, oh, should I take my money out? I mean, a lot of them follow very rigidly what the LDS Church does. So I thought I would quickly go through a couple statements about Ensign Peak. We have this famous one from the head of Ensign Peak Advisors. He said church leaders were concerned, this is explaining why they have so much freaking money and didn't tell anybody, that public knowledge of the fund's wealth might discourage tithing. Paying tithing is more of a sense of commitment than it is the church needing the money. So they never wanted to be in a position where people felt like they shouldn't make a contribution. These are some of the just extremely problematic things swirling around Ensign Peak. I won't read this whole one, but of course, this is whistleblower David Nelson, who pointed out that Ensign Peak has only ever made 2, actual withdrawals, and these are given to companies that were for profit to bail out Beneficial Life, right? The Monson's company, and to bail out the City Creek Mall. So Ensign Peak already has kind of a very dicey history, as we all know. So the article goes on to say, even after the massive sale, the church still, of course, holds U.S. stocks and portfolios of about 56 billion, meaning that it isn't in any kind of a financial crisis, but still this is they're saying a strategic shift in what they would normally do. And of course, this does make people wonder what has happened. Financial analysts quoted in the article say that this move represents a noticeable departure from Ensign Peak's traditional strategy, which is long tracked major market indexes in the S&P 500. You talked about that, Bill. Instead of small adjustments, the church reduced positions across many large, well-known companies, suggesting a broader change in investment direction. They didn't just do this kind of in one place. They spread it out and divested all over. In the Salt Lake Tribune, it said analysis shows that the multi-billion-dollar sale came primarily from Ensign Peak's 500 largest stock positions, shedding shares in blue chip stocks from some of the world's largest publicly traded companies. So they're just dumping it. I mean, it's not this little obscure stock. These are big name stocks. These sales, combined with wider market upswings in October, November, and December, lowered the total portfolio's value to $56.6 billion, down from a record high of $60.9 billion in the previous quarter. So that's quite a fall, and it seems to be intentional. And people, of course, the article says, so why sell now, right? There are different reasons that people are speculating on. They're saying insider information. Have you heard that one, Bill? Maybe a revelation, maybe insider information. And what does that mean if that's true, Bill?
Well, one thought would be that we had from Gordon Smith this indication that in politics, one's loyalty among LDS politicians is often prioritized as the church first, and the citizens of the state or country that that person represents second. Meaning that if a politician who was church broke came into and had a close relationship with LDS leadership and was aware of information that would save the church tons of money in losses if they knew of something that was down the road, some event that none of us could get to see, but that political, government committees would be talking about, one could reach out to the church in that office and break the rules, which it wouldn't be the first time that that's happened. Break the rules of decor and ethics, and essentially give the church insider information. That's certainly within the realm of possibilities.
No, it really is. And that's what a lot of people are really suggesting it is. Other suggestions are a way to sort of obscure the funds, hide the money a little more. And I've talked to somebody in finance, and I have a quote from them that says this possibly is it. And possibly maybe there's a big project coming up that they need the funds for. So I can't imagine the church did not realize what kind of scrutiny this would be under, doing something completely off the cuff. None of us have seen this before. So I won't read all of these, but these are just some quotes about Ensign Peak. If people aren't really familiar, you can freeze and read. So it says the timing.
Can I share one other option?
Yeah, go ahead.
The church has made so much money in the market that the worst thing in the world for them would be to leave it in and something bad happen.
Very true.
It makes sense to take some of that money out that, again, they've got so much. It's not like they need to capitalize on every cent they have in terms of leaving it in and making money on it. You take some of those winnings essentially and you set them off to the side so that if something bad happens, you didn't just put it all at risk. And whether that's 10 billion or 20 billion, whatever it is, at this point it looks like it's about 5 billion, a little less than that. But to take some of that and set it aside, so that you start protecting that money. And it wouldn't surprise me if over the next decade or two, little by little, they take out some each year or every 6 months so that they have money that isn't at risk sitting on the sidelines, so that if something drastic in the negative did happen, they'd still have plenty of money for operations.
Yeah, but again, that makes everybody think, what did they know that I don't know? And if they're going to take the money out and stuff it under the mattresses of all the apostles as they sleep at night so peacefully on billions of dollars, more power to them, I guess. But it definitely is something that everybody's questioning. So the timing is notable. The investment shift comes during a period of leadership transition. I mean, how interesting that they're suddenly doing this. So many things that they're doing that they've never done before, all of a sudden with President Oaks. It really makes me think there's a whole new strategy going on, behind everything. So, and of course, it says in short, the LDS Church remains extraordinarily wealthy. So like I said, I did talk to somebody kind of in the know in finance, and they said there could be various things going on. And we kind of already went over these, but I thought this was interesting. They could be moving to index funds. That would mean that we, meaning those people that try to track it, try to understand where the money's going and what's happening and how much money there actually is, we would be in the dark going forward about the stock portfolio and its size. So embarrassed by, the gargantuan fund moving it in this way. It wouldn't be able to be tracked so easily by somebody like the widow's mite. They wouldn't be able to tell. They could be downsizing just this portion since it's the most visible. This is something that everybody can see. It's right there in the stock market. It's reported. Let's just take this down a little bit because it's such a bad look. It's so inflated, right? It looks bad for a church to have 70 billion in stocks. So maybe they drop it down to 5 billion or something. And then there is less hard evidence of its vast wealth and hoarding. And that's kind of what you alluded to, Bill. They could be reallocating it to other vehicles, private equity, land, things that, again, aren't quite as visible, because it's such a bad look. They could be moving international. I hadn't thought of this one. And away from domestic. The US dollar has lost a lot of relative value in the past year. That's scary too. They know what's going on. Do the rest of us know what's going on? Should we be moving our money? I mean, it makes you nervous, right? And then there is the possibility that we're about to see some huge expenditures on the horizon. I've heard other people mention this. The BYU Medical School is a big one that this person I talked to was thinking of, although I feel like that's all going to be donations. You know what I mean? They never seem to use their own money. They seem to use the big net worth donors on that. And this person also says, but it could be something we aren't even aware of yet. Now, that's something to think about. What could cost billions of dollars that they could be about to do? I don't know, settling sexual abuse lawsuits? Maybe that's it. I don't think the Temple Square open house would hit anywhere near, even close to this. And I agree. I think that is not what this is going to be for, the 10 billion that disappeared. And then they said it's going to make things a little more difficult, making estimates going forward, talking about people that are a watchdog, like the widow's mite, that watch this and try to keep track. We have to assume that the sold stocks are just allocated equally across other investment options until we would get better information. They're just not going to be able to track it as well as they could. It's now a little more obscure. So one last slide that I just came across right before we came on. Faithful podcasters are thinking this means something. Taking out that amount of money right before General Conference? Is he near? Is it happening? So seeking signs, of course, which we're not supposed to do, but somehow they're linking the money and General Conference, and also the fact that the church has put out an announcement for General Conference much earlier than it has in the past. So this particular podcaster is linking all of this. Second coming, is it right around the corner? And can we track this through the stock market? So really interesting. Any final thoughts on that?
Just that anytime a Mormon predicts that Jesus is coming back soon, I will always take the opposite position and I will always win.
You should bet on that and put your money in the stock market, Bill. That's perfect. Oh my goodness. So we'll watch this. And especially the person I talked to said, if they start doing this quarter after quarter, year after year, then something is happening. Kind of like what you said, Bill, maybe, just every year divesting a little bit more. And then that really does mean something. So what it means, we don't know. We'll have to see.